I were talking to me 44 years ago when I was 20, I would say, Jack, you need to ask more and not be afraid of rejection whatsoever.
It's all about transforming our relationship to the word no and transforming our relationship to rejection. That it really is where we're making our money.
Believe in what you're doing, and you do it with passion and abandon and tenacity and heart. Nobody can stop you.
You can do it. Never give up on your dream because your dream is worth it. Just look at the no's and realize that the yes is coming.
I guess I'd like to start at the 30,000 foot level and just say that my entire life has been a go for no story.
When it comes to achieving success, in your mind, which is most important, talent or tenacity?
I'd have to say tenacity.
I would have to agree with that.
Oh gosh, this is one of the questions of the ages.
Tenacity.
No question about it. Tenacity. Tenacity.
I would say tenacity by a long shot.
Oh, tenacity by far. I don't think I have a lot of talent.
Both of those are important, but I think tenacity, if I need to choose between the two, is the greatest, because there are a lot of very talented people that don't let their talent shine because they're scared of the word no, or they're scared of rejection, or they're scared of the fear of failure. And the talent can be great, but the talent can be left on the table.
Tenacity, hands down.
Well, tenacity will always be more important because talent can always be developed, talent can always be learned, but the determination, the perseverance, that's where most people fall down. And so what if you don't know how to do it? That's what you learn to do. That's what success is about. It's becoming the person who can do those things.
Tenacity is more important.
Oh, most definitely tenacity, because you can teach a talent.
Tenacity.
Well, Edison would probably say tenacity, for sure.
Absolute tenacity.
They really go together. But if I had to, I would say tenacity.
I've always believed that tenacity is definitely more important than talent.
But I've seen a lot of people with a lot of talent that let rejection, that let other obstacles, that let doubt get in the way of that. And it's in those moments that the people who are able to move forward are the ones that have the tenacity. Even are almost void of talent, and so, in the obvious kind of talent, maybe they just don't have it, but they have that I just got to do it attitude that makes it happen.
Tenacity, hands down.
I don't know how much talent I have, but I have, a little tenacity, so I'm going to go with that one.
I think tenacity. If I had to pick one or the other, I'd rather have someone that has determination and, hopefully a modicum of talent, and then you're going to see a lot more success.
With tenacity you get talent. There's a lot of talented people. Talent is important. Talent is reserved for the very few. The Michael Jordans, the Celine Dion's, the Tiger Woods. Those are people with incredible talent. Mozart, incredible talent. Einstein, incredible talent. But those are the exception.
I do believe that sales is a skill, and that becoming a really good salesperson is a talent. That talent can be developed. It's no different than any athlete. It's a talent that you develop. Well, how do you develop it? Well, not without tenacity.
The talent is my inborn attribute. I can't really control it anyway. Now what I can do is polish it up. I can shine it. I can take care of it, make it last longer. But I may not be able to make it greater. But with my tenacity, with my willingness to be bold, my willingness to be flamboyant, my willingness to disregard my excuses, I take tenacity.
Oh, you know what I'm gonna say.
Tenacity is way more important.
Tenacity.
It has to be tenacity.
My best go for no story is when I just got into the career sales. My sister-in-law had given me a book called The Greatest Salesman in the World. Actually, the book found me. And it gave me hope. It inspired me that I could do more and be more with my life. So I thought that, hey, those who were involved in sales did really well. And she helped me get a job at Cellular One, selling cellular phones. So the day I went to go, for my first day of the job, the general manager, I still remember his name, Jim Beckett, said, you know, I'm sorry, Burke, but we cannot hire you because we have a policy at our company that we just don't hire family members. Now, keep in mind, I had quit my other job. I mean, I was all in, and I was so excited about starting in this new sales career. Remember, my major was criminal justice, so I don't have any sales background, so this was my first experience with sales, and I was really looking forward to it. So he says, hey, Burke, I'm sorry we can't hire you. And I was so disappointed. I was so rejected. I went home, didn't know what to do. This was Monday. And what I said was, I'm not going to take no for an answer. So the next morning, I got up at 5. I was at the office at 5:30 in the morning because I heard Mr. Beckett like to get there early in the morning. So I was there before he showed up, and I said to him, you have to hire me. In fact, I asked to speak to him, and I gave him all the compelling reasons why no was not good enough, and that why he needed to hire me and what I could do for the company. And he finally, reluctantly agreed to hire me, but I could only work and sell in a territory that was Pasco County. They called it where all the cows were. So he thought surely I was destined to fail, and I wouldn't want to be involved in sales because nobody succeeds in Pasco County. And sure enough, I said, I'll take the job, I'll take it. And yes, I did. I got in my car and I drove an hour just to cross to the Pasco County line where I started my sales career. And let me tell you, because I didn't take no as an answer, not only did I beat everyone as the salesman of the month, the very first month, I outsold everybody in the office combined. In 6 months, I was the #1 salesperson for Cellular One, all-time record, just because I refused to take no as an answer.
One was when I was working my way through college. I was a salesperson during the summer between my freshman and sophomore year when I was at the University of Notre Dame. I had to earn the tuition. My parents had no money. None. My father was a New York City cab driver. And I was going for a bonus, a scholarship, and I had to hit a certain volume during the summer. And the volume was $10,000. In 7 weeks of the 10-week summer, I was at $9,000. I figured it was a piece of cake. Next 2 weeks, 0 sales. 0. And what was happening was I was ruling people out because I didn't think that they would buy. I was actually saying no, not them. I was saying no to myself. They're not a prospect. And I wouldn't even try. And then in that 10th and last week, the big turning point that actually affected my selling career beyond that was when I knocked on a door. A woman answered. She was holding a baby. She was under 21, which we're not supposed to present to somebody under 21. She was actually holding her sister's baby. And I asked if her parents were there because I wanted to present. I was selling cookware, china, crystal, and cutlery. And she said, no, my mother, my father are not here, but my sister's here and she's over 21. And I said, okay, that'll work. And the previous 2 weeks, I always was saying no. I would have walked away from that. But in this 10th week, I knew I had to present to everybody. I go in, I start doing my presentation. The older sister who's supposed to be sitting there and monitoring everything is in the kitchen, giving her baby a little bath in the kitchen sink. But she's saying, yeah, I'm listening, I'm listening. So I'm going through the presentation, and all of a sudden, toward the end of the presentation, a third sister walks in and gets very angry. Who are you? What is this? What is, you're selling cookware? My husband just left me. He was a cookware salesperson. Oh my God, I couldn't believe this. And she said, how much is all this stuff? And I said, well, let me just go a little bit further. And she was challenging me. And by that time, all three sisters were sitting here. And so I went through my presentation, and then she finally kept pushing, how much? And I told her the price. And all of a sudden she said, oh, that's all? And I walked out of the house with over a $2,000 sale that I actually would never have gone in because I kept telling myself no. And it put me over the top, made my bonus, got my tuition money. And from that point forward, I realized that never say no to myself, never prejudge somebody, just keep up at bat.
I love that story. That's fantastic. That is a true go for no story.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've truly ever heard the word no, to be honest with you. I don't think it registers in my mind. I nagged my parents, persisted to get a puppy. They said, no, Laura, no, you're not old enough. We can't do this. You're not going to take care of it. Not now. But why not? No, Laura. Well, guess what? I broke through. I got him to go look at the puppy. I got him to go look at it. They still said no. But you guys, I want a puppy. No, Laura. No, Laura. No means no. N-O. The next day, my mom came into my room at 8 in the morning to get me up for school. She said, Laura, let's go. You got to get ready for school. Come on, I'll bring you some juice. The first words that came out of my mouth was, but what about the dog? There's your answer.
I had to ask people all the time, would you host a party for me? Would you like to buy my products? Would you like to see my opportunity? Would you like to be a partner with me in the opportunity? And I heard no, but I ended up in the top 5 in my company because I pretended like I was a duck. And if you watch ducks, they come out of the water and the water goes. And like water off a duck's back, it was like, okay, no, next, no, next, no, next. And as much as I would start to get a little discouraged, I just decided that I didn't like discouraged either. I didn't like that feeling, so I just decided not to be discouraged. And I would just keep going.
Everybody wants to be a millionaire, but nobody wants to do what it takes to get to be one. You know what I'm saying? And that's like sports and whatever. Everybody wants to be the get the golden ring or whatever, but they're not willing to work for it. And so that therein lies the no. When you get the no's, you want to quit because people don't like to be told no. Their feelings get hurt and they're not able to, and they don't want to work for it. You know. And so I think what happens is a lot of times people take the easy road.
To me, the biggest no's are still the ones I hear inside my head. And those are still the biggest ones where I say, okay, now the goal is to create and put a room together with 10,000 people that are on the path of leadership, or 50,000 people. And who's the first person that tells me no? It's Art Jonak.
All of the struggles, all of the no's really produce the successes. And that's the power of no, that the people who can persist through the no's become so strong and become so capable and figure out a way to get to the yeses because of the no's.
You know, every successful person is going to tell you that they've had all kinds of failures. They hear no all the time. And, you know, to a degree, it's a numbers game for all of us in that sense. And you have to sort through all those rejections and no's and failures to get to your successes. And, you know, the amazing thing about all the no's is that at a minimum, they're practice. You know, they're always practice so that you can get better and you can learn from the no's. And that's what great people do. You know, they fail at something. I've known so many elite people who've had horrific failures, but they learned from their failures and then they grew from what they learned.
When you decide to do something big, when you decide to do something out of the ordinary, or when you decide to just embrace who you are and say, I am going to try this, or at least I desire this, even if you haven't yet committed to doing it. If you can understand that you have been equipped with everything you need already on the inside of you to accomplish that vision, that dream, that goal that you have of being what it is that you want to be. If you realize that you're already equipped to be as successful as you desire to be, then it takes a little bit of the stress off.
Quickly tell us, you kind of told it earlier, but I do want to get this for our interview. Your funny, crazy beginning in sales. You started in construction, right?
I was a construction worker, shy, I couldn't talk to anybody. Fell in our church, offered me a job on a commission. I didn't even know what the word meant. I quit my job. Judy was pregnant with our first child. We had no money in the bank. I had an old beat up Volkswagen Bug. And I went out and made 1,200 sales calls in the first 4 months and made one sale. And when I brought it in to Vernon Cavill, the sales manager, he was so excited I made the sale. He said, tell me how you made it. I said, they just gave me the money. He said, you didn't create value, need, close, handle it. I said, no, they just wanted the product and wrote a check and gave me the money. He said, you are the worst salesman I have ever hired in over 2 decades of training salespeople. He had 1,000 people working for him. And he told me to quit because I was the worst person he had ever hired. And he said, unless you change your attitude, you will never amount to anything. And he gave me a record by Earl Nightingale called The Strangest Secret. And one thought in that changed my entire life. And I went back with the same product, same territory, with a whole different attitude. And I made 2 sales in the first 4 hours. I doubled 4 months of effort in 4 hours. And I looked in that rearview mirror of my old beat up Volkswagen and I said, I did it! I did it! And tried to think, what did I do that was different? My thinking was different. And by the end of that year, I was the #1 salesman out of 1,000 working for Mr. Cavill. It made me a manager. I set all kinds of records. My entire life changed. My personality changed. I was on fire. I was unstoppable. But had I not had that beginning experience, I would have had no understanding as a manager of salespeople what it's like to struggle. As a speaker and as a sales trainer, no comprehension of how difficult it is. In water skiing, we've taught, Judy and I, hundreds of people to slalom ski only because it took us so long to do it ourselves until we knew the right way. And it's the struggle that makes it so rewarding and makes you so much stronger and better. So without that terrible experience, and it was horrible, I mean, every night going home, failing after failure, failing and failing, but Judy just kept encouraging me to go out and do it again. And finally, it clicked.
Well, one of the things that we're asking everyone to share in this documentary is a go for no story.
Okay.
A time where you're faced with failure, rejection, you're hearing no over and over and over to achieve some specific goal or specific result. I'm sure you have a bunch of go for no stories, but is there one that pops up into your mind?
It's interesting because we go for no every day, and I think to be successful you have to do that. So I can talk on the micro scale or the macro scale, but thinking about this, I figured you were probably going to ask this question. So thinking about this, the story that came to mind was a story where, in sales, I found that a lot of sales organizations are fairly cutthroat. Most people who do extremely well, like the #1, #2, #3 people in a lot of organizations, don't share their secrets because they feel threatened by that. And they feel like if they share with someone what it is that they do to be successful, then that person can go out and take business away. But what I've found is that there's millions of people in this world, and so we have hundreds of millions of people in our country alone who we can market to. And the one thing I love about our business, and one of the main reasons I've stuck around, is because the top people in our business are always open to sharing things. I mean, I've asked high-level salespeople all around, people that I meet on a daily basis, what it is that they do to be successful, and they kind of give me very vague answers, or they kind of protect their secrets. But one of the go for no stories that I've had that's helped me be successful and helped me get to where I am today is I had met our number one salesperson at a conference when I was brand new 8 years ago in this business. And he was selling more Cutco than anybody in the history of our company had ever sold. And so I walked up, introduced myself, and asked him if I could get some tips from him. And he said no at that point because we were in the middle of a conference and it was really busy, and he's bombarded by new people all the time. And so I just asked if I could get his phone number and possibly follow up with him later, and he said yes, and he gave me his phone number. And then I called him, and he didn't have time to talk to me. And then I called him again, and he didn't have time to talk to me. And then I called him and got his voicemail and just ended up leaving him messages. And I was like, man, this guy's so busy. Maybe I'm just not, maybe I need to work harder. Maybe I need to be a better rep to get some of his time. But then I said to myself, I really need to keep trying to get in touch with this guy because I could really use his time. And I just kept calling to the point where I was leaving him a message at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. And finally, after a few months of calling over and over and over again, John finally called me back and he said, hey, I noticed I'm getting a lot of messages from you, and I figured I should probably give you some time. You're probably not going to stop calling me. And I said, yeah. And so I've learned so much from him about how to operate a highly successful, sustainable business for years. Over the past 8 years. Now John and I are, close friends. He's getting married this summer, and I'm going to be attending his wedding, his bachelor party. I'm really excited about that. And we help each other now and talk consistently on a weekly or monthly basis about things both inside and outside of our businesses. And what's great is he does other things now that inspire me to raise my game to a higher level. And I think my standards and the way that I run my business, the underlying things regarding integrity and honesty and ethics and stuff like that, a lot of those things I learned from my original manager Amy, and I also learned from John. And John's been an inspiration in my business, and I wouldn't be where I am today without going for no and really getting John to give me that time so that I could learn from him and really building my credibility and relationship with him. So
I love that story. Because that really, it's a great go for no story, but it's not just about getting the sale, getting the customer, it's really about getting the mentor. And sometimes I think people forget that you have to go for no on those things too.
Yeah, and I think that I've gotten more sales and customers because of that relationship. And so, I credit a lot of my success to what I learned from John.
Right. Everyone that we are interviewing, we're asking them to share a go for no story from their past. This is a time where you heard no over and over and over again, you failure, rejection, the whole thing, before achieving that which you were trying to go after. I'm sure you have a bunch of go for no stories. Is there one that
Yeah, there's one that sticks out. I was actually talking to my father about it earlier today. Long story short, I was playing in a national tennis tournament in Tennessee. It was a major tournament to qualify for, basically to get a full ride, collegiate scholarship. Every college was there, from Stanford to UCLA to Pepperdine, Brown, you name it. My parents had flown myself, we all flew out together to the East Coast, and it was my first match. And for people that are familiar with tennis, you play 2 out of 3 sets. I lost the first set, 0-6. I was down in the second, 0-5, match point to the other girl. And all I could hear was my father on the sideline quietly saying, well, Cammie, my mother, talking to my mother, well, Cammie, let's pack it up, not this time today. I don't know if that's all I needed to hear. It pissed me off beyond belief. I slowly but surely started to come back. I was not going to give up. I knew we had flown all the way out here. I knew I had earned the right to be there, and I was not going to give up, even though this girl was a hairline away from winning the match. If I would have lost first round, we would have packed up, flown back all the way to California, to Southern Cal, and that would have been it. Slowly but surely, I kept fighting through. Now, I wore my personality on my sleeve, but regardless, so in other words, I threw my racket a ton. I was sort of a mini John McEnroe, and I got a lot of warnings, didn't stop me. A lot of warnings. I did whatever I could to win this match. And mind you, it was on clay, and I'd never played on clay before. So again, I had that against me. The other girl I was playing was used to playing on clay. So I kept fighting through, It was 100 plus degrees, 100 plus % humidity. People in the crowd were just kind of going wild. I had a lot of things going against me, but I slowly but surely, I came back and I ended up beating this girl in the third set, almost a 4-hour match. After that, I walked off the court and the first thing I said to my father was, "I told you we're not going home." He was laughing, he gave me a hug. It was kind of a heartfelt moment, and after that I had every college wanting me to play for them.
I was teaching a stretching class at a local fitness center. I think it was more of a health club than anything else. And I was writing a column in the Phoenix newspaper about stretching, just stretching. Why stretching is good for you, how it makes you feel better, what's more important, stretching or weightlifting. And the general manager of the Oakland A's found it interesting. So he called me up and said, "How would you like to give us a stretching demonstration?" And I thought that was kind of funny. I had never done, outside of the martial arts arena, a stretching demonstration. It was easy for me to think about stretching in terms of martial arts, and kicking and things like this. But stretching for someone with no reason to actually stretch, how would I demonstrate that? So this was interesting and sort of it made me more creative. So I met them at their headquarters, and I demonstrated what I would consider a civilian's approach to stretching. And I took all of the martial arts elements out of it, and I tried to stretch and show them that the whole purpose for stretching is just to feel good, was my idea for them. They loved it, and I started teaching them in the spring of 1985. It lasted 2 days. And they hired me to become their conditioning instructor, which lasted for the next 10 years. But after I've been working for Oakland, for my first year, the current manager, a fellow by the name, I can't remember, he'll come to me maybe, but anyway, Jackie Moore. Jackie Moore was the manager of the Oakland A's, a wonderful man, by the way, and who was not a great manager, but he was a wonderful person. And the reason that I spent those 10 years, because he refused to let the players rebel. He says, "You guys are going to do this with Mac no matter what. If you don't like it, then you can go sit in the locker room and you can explain it to the general manager. But Mac is here for a reason, and you will do it. Without that, my relationship would have ended right away." But nonetheless, he was fired after the first year. And the new manager, Tony La Russa, who's had a tremendous career as a manager in the big leagues, he came in and immediately fired all the coaches, including myself. And we were sent letters. And I received my letter, and it said, it was very, very brief. It says, "Your services are no longer required by the Oakland A's. Thank you very much." I thought, my gosh, after all the work that I've put in, after all the consideration that I've done, all of the creation, sacrifice that I've gone through, you mean it ends like that? And I needed that job, by the way. I didn't need the money because, you see, in the big leagues, only the players are paid. All the coaches, unless you're a big-time coach like Tony or one of the great managers, the groundskeepers and things, they aren't paid very much. People like us are supposed to be happy because we're associated with Major League Baseball. That's supposed to be a lot of our pay. And for some of it, it is. It wasn't for me. I was looking to broaden my horizons. I wanted to see if my philosophies on fitness worked as well with professional athletes as they did with me and my martial arts students. I wanted to see what I could do with the greatest athletes in the world. And I was having this success. Things were going along. I wanted to build my name throughout baseball and throughout professional sport. This was moving along well. I needed this job. And I was fired unceremoniously. I took offense to it. So I went out. They were having a meeting at the Valley Ho, the old Valley Ho. And I went out and I looked at the board of the agenda board, and I saw that they were having a dinner that evening. So after I sent a note to Tony's room, he didn't answer it. After I left him a phone message, he didn't respond. So he left me no choice but to come back that evening at dinner and walk right out to his table, uninvited. So all the coaches and all the management for Oakland's out there. This is some big, big shindig. And I walk out there and I walk up to him and I said, Tony LaRussa? He says, yes, my name is Mac Newton. I'm your conditioning coach. He says, let me cut you off. You were. Mac, thanks for coming. But I've never had anyone like you before and I don't need you now. And so save yourself, any further embarrassment, and thanks, but no thanks. And when he said that, it kind of irritated me a bit. And I thought, you know what? I really don't need this guy. I've got my foot in the door. I said, you know what? You're right. You think you know who I am, and I know who you are. I know your background. I know a lot about you. You know nothing about me. I'm a winner, always have been a winner, always will be a winner. You want people like me on your team. You just don't know it. Now, I'll tell you what I want to do. I'm going to come back with another team and bite you in your butt. I will never forget this day. He says, whoa. What exactly do you want now? I said, what do you think I want? What do you think I came out here? I want my job back. Now, if you want to fire me because you've seen me and you think my work is useless or meaningless, then fine, I'll accept that. But you fired me without having no idea what I do. You don't know me. Find out. Then if you don't like it, fire me. That's what I want. He says, okay. I want you to meet me tomorrow morning at the Oakland complex. We have a group of minor leaguers here. I'd like to see you work with them. I says, thank you for giving me my job back. He says, no, you don't have it back yet. You'll have it back if you have something we like. I said, thanks for giving me my job back. And I left. The next day, after I met him out there and we went through what I do, he walked by and said 2 words to me. He says, that'll work. 10 years was the next response.
The one that pops in my head right now is years ago when I did get into the radio industry. And because that's kind of like where everything changed when I got doing something I really enjoyed and, led to what I'm doing now. And what happened was I decided I really wanted to get into radio sales. And I went to a radio station to apply for a job, and they didn't have a job, but that was the one I wanted to go to. And so I sat outside the manager's door, and he came out a couple of times and said, we're really not interviewing. I said, well, I'll just talk to you when you have time. Well, he came out a couple of times, kept saying he was busy, and then towards the end of the day, I thought I was going in, but he comes out and says, I'm sorry, I have an appointment, and he leaves. So I go back the next day. The same thing, they're not hiring. He comes in, no, I can't see you, I'm busy. I said, I'll wait. Several times he said no. So at the end of the day, he leaves again. So I go back the third day, and I just sat there. And he finally, I guess, decided by the third day in the afternoon I wasn't leaving, he better get rid of me. So he calls me and he says, no, we don't have the position. I said, that's okay, just hire an extra person. All I need is put a desk and give me a phone and I'm off. It's outside sales anyway, I'm not going to be in the office. He said, well, the thing is, we've already given all the accounts to all the other salespeople, so we can't hire you. I said, well, how many salespeople? He said, 6. How many accounts do they have? Oh, about 50. I said, well, that's only 300. He says, well, those are the people that buy radio. I said, well, I'll just take the other 20,000 that don't buy radio. It doesn't matter, He says, yeah, but we don't have a draw against commission to pay you. I said, I don't need it. If you do a good job in commission, if I'm not making more than the draw, I'm going to quit anyway. So don't give me a draw. Just pay me what I sell. So he said, okay. So they gave me a desk and a phone, and that's when I started. And of course, if you can sell, by the end of the month, I was able to stay, and that's where everything led to today.
When people either literally say no or circumstances say no, the ability to pursue through that and to push through that is really been the key to my success and really the key to anybody's success.
And I think a lot of times people give up too soon thinking they've failed because they got a lot of no's instead of realizing, hey, I'm still on track to do this. It's just taking longer than my ego mind thought it would.
Persistence means not giving up, but persistence also means having faithful courage that instills in our heart the kind of possibility thinking, and that frames our mindset with the potential for a better tomorrow.
If you believe in what you're doing, and you do it with passion and abandon and tenacity and heart, nobody can stop you.
Many of life's failures are experienced by people who didn't realize how close they were to success when they gave up.
Recently, I lost my iPod, and like I came up with different ways to ask my mom to like buy me a new one. She kept saying no. Like she started thinking I'm a little irresponsible, which like it wasn't my fault. Like someone stole it.
So you kept asking. Did you get it? No. Not yet.
Not yet.
Are you going to keep
it? Yet.
We had come from doing a show where we were very underwhelmed with the sales that we had made, and we had a pile of bills that had to be paid, and we're feeling rather broke and a little bit on the desperate side. And this is back before, so I guess it's long enough ago that it was back before everybody was doing things through email and the internet and stuff. And so we were maintaining, one of the things that we do is we maintain a mailing list, and now it's an email list, but back then it was just, people, if they came to the shows and they liked our work, but they weren't buying anything then, but we thought they might potentially want to some other day, we would get them to sign our mailing list, and we'd let them know that the mailing list was for sending postcards to let them know. I'm sure you guys have gotten postcards from us over the years. Anyway, we had a number of people who seemed to be particularly interested in one particular piece that we had, and that was one of the things we used to try to do, is when they'd sign the mailing list, we would make little notations in our notebook to remind ourselves of who they were, what show we had seen them at, and what particular piece they had been looking at. And we came home from that show and we sat down and we saw that we had not only the addresses but the phone numbers, because we'd gone to like Office Depot or whatever and gotten some kind of
a reception sign-in.
Yeah, and it had like time in and time out, but it kind of looked pretty, so we thought we'll use it, but you didn't have to put time in. But sometimes people would get so persnickety and they'd fill out this whole thing, and so there was a line where you put your phone number, and so most of the people would just put their name and address, but every so often people would fill out the whole thing. And so we looked at the book when we came back from the show, and we realized that there were 3 people who had given us their phone numbers as well, and they were all those people were the people who were interested in that same piece. And so we decided, well, we never, at that point, we were only really using that as a mailing list to send postcards to shows, but we decided, well, we did have their phone numbers. We were going to just call them and say, and at that point, we had never made those kinds of phone calls. So we just were very nervous about it, but we called them and sort of said, we never did sell that piece, and we're wondering now that you've had a little bit of time since the show, did you ever have a chance to go home and look around your house and see if maybe there was a spot for it, and maybe we could bring it over and see if it would fit and that sort of thing. And basically, all 3 people said yes. And suddenly we only had the one piece, but we had sold it 3 times. So and it wasn't a one-of-a-kind piece. It was a piece that we had decided was an addition piece, but we were basically, because it was such a large piece, we were going to make the addition one at a time. But so suddenly we were making 3 of them and that was back when we had a much smaller studio, and it was a pretty large piece. So it kind of went from nothing to selling 3 big pieces of this one particular, and then making ourselves lunatics to actually get it all done at once. But it was the very first time we had ever called somebody after a show and sort of said that, and it was amazing to us that all 3 of them said, yeah, I really did like that piece, and yeah, we did look around the house, and sure, and so we...
Was it the last time we did that?
No, we should perhaps do it a little more often than
I'm sure you have a bunch of Go for No stories. What's just one?
You're right, there are a bunch, but probably the one that had the biggest
coup at the end of it. When I first started, I was a single mom with children that were 5, 4, and 2 years of age. I didn't have any capital and had no previous experience. Now, any one of those things would be a reason for somebody to say, I don't want to do it or I can't do it. But instead, I used my children as my reason, and I just kind of jumped in. But because of the lack of funds, I was unable to do some of the things I wanted to do in terms of travel. So if somebody invited me to, say, Louisville, Kentucky, or to California, to LA, to do a meeting, I would jump in my car, drive, sleep in my car. I just did whatever it took. I also was willing to go anywhere, do meetings anywhere, and sometimes I'd drive 2 and 3 hours, nobody would show up. And, just that thankless effort of inviting many people and a handful showing up, and that really recurring rejection, that feeling. And, but just plowing through that and keeping a really big vision, and where that became such an amazing turnaround. As business started to develop, now I had the kind of money I needed to travel, and actually after 11, 12 months in my business, I was making a 5-figure income, more than I could have made in an entire year teaching school. As a former teacher, I made in a single month. So, nice turnaround, but where it really came to fruition is I was doing a meeting in New York City. I was invited to do a meeting in New York City, and I now could afford to fly. I could stay at hotels, and I arrived late at this meeting because my cab driver could not find it. As I came in, I could feel the irritation. I could see there was no retrieving this crowd. People were fanning themselves, and so I gave a very brief overview. And at the end of the meeting, a Russian gentleman came up to me and he said, I'm going to take this to Russia. And it was shortly after the breakup of the Soviet states. I long since had quit listening to what people said. I didn't get excited by their assertions of greatness anymore. I waited to see what they were going to do. But within a handful of weeks, I started noticing these names. Svetlana, Igor, Vladimir, Valentin. These names showing up on my printout. And pretty soon there were pages and pages and pages of them. And then pages and pages and pages. At one point, I ordered a full downline printout before the ruble fell, back 14 years ago or whatever. And the printout on single-spaced, that accordion paper, green and white paper, 50 on each side, it stood, almost a foot high, 8, 10, 12 inches high, 500,000. And it was my lesson that there is a sowing season and there is a reaping season. They're not in the same season. And you've got to be willing to plant without looking at the results or counting today's revenue, because someday, you'll do meetings and meet with people, or no one comes, and then one day you do one meeting and you get a nation.